This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Rabbi Say, let me share with you something very interesting. If you look in the beginning of Sefer Bamidbar, does anybody know when does Sefer Bamidbar start? The first pasuk of Parak Aleph of Bamidbar. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe b'Midbar Sinai v'yoyel Moyed be'echad lachodesh Sheini b'shana Shenis. Sefer Bamidbar begins Rosh Chodesh Iyar, the first day of the second month. Comes Parshas V'Haloischa in Parak Tes. Vayidaber Hashem el Moshe b'Midbar Sinai b'shana Shenis b'chodesh Harishon. So when does the parsha of Pesach Rishon start? Rosh Chodesh Nisan. What do we call that? Backward. Bamidbar begins Rosh Chodesh Iyar. Then in middle Ba'aloischa. By the way, from here we learn when did Moshe Rabbeinu command them about Pesach Sheini? A month before Pesach Sheini. From there we learn Shalom V'Darshim B'Hilchos HaChag Kodem HaChag Shloshim Yom. But Pesach Sheini begins Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and Sefer Bamidbar begins when? Rosh Chodesh Iyar. So Rashi's bothered, it's out of order. Says Rashi in Chanami, this is Rashi, Parak Tes Pasuk Aleph. Parsha Shebarosh HaSefer Lo Nemra Ad Iyar. The parsha in the beginning of the book does not begin until Iyar. Lamadata She'ein Seder Muktam Ucha B'Torah. There's no order in the Torah. So fact Rashi, why Takanat? Why doesn't Sefer Bamidbar begin with the story of Pesach Sheini? The answer is because it's embarrassing to Klal Yisrael, because all 40 years they were in the Midbar, they were only Makriv Pesach Rishon. This is the only time they were ever Makriv the current Pesach. By the way, Tosfos asks, why? Why were they only Makriv this current Pesach in basically the second year? It was the only current Pesach they brought. So Tosfos says, because it says, Ki Savayu al Ha'aretz, you're only Chayv in Pesach when you come to Eretz Yisrael. So for Tosfos said, how could they bring this one? It was Api Hadibor. What do we see? That the Pesach Sheini is out of order. It's out of order. Why is it out of order? Why? Let's get to the depth of the Torah to some degree. Why is the Taka out of order? Let's talk about something else. Let's talk about who are these people who are Tameh. Why were they Tameh? True, Ein Muktam Ucha B'Torah, but the thing is, how often, we don't invoke the rule by every single thing. There are only specific times where we say, oh, this is out of order, Ein Muktam Ucha. Why did Hashem choose this particular episode to be Ein Muktam Ucha B'Torah? Who are these people? And another question. This comes all from the Emunah Sitecha of Rabbi Ushan. Who are the people who are Tameh? So it's the Gemara in Sukkah. The Gemara in Sukkah says, these people were Mishael and El Tzafain. What did they do that they became Tameh? What they did was they carried out the body of Nadav and Avihu. They carried out the body of Nadav and Avihu. It's a Gemara in Sukkah, I think on Chaf Hey, that there are different opinions. Some say it's those who became Tameh with Aroinoi Shel Yosef, and so it says Vayihi Anashim Asher Hayu Tmei L'Nefesh Adam Oisam Anashim Hayu Noisei Aroinoi Shel Yosef Hayu. The Rabbi Yosef Glili. Rabbi Akiva Amar Rabbi Akiva Mishav Al Tzavan Hayu Shahayu Oiskim Nadav Avihu. Okay, that's the first idea. Another very important idea is that they say, Lama Nigara! Why can't we bring the Karm Pesach? Huh? Because you're Tameh. You're Tameh. You're not allowed to bring the Karm Pesach. Imagine a guy, did you ever hear in the story, there was once upon a time a guy, he didn't have an arm, so he came to Moshe, Lama Nigara, why shouldn't I wear tefillin? I don't know, Nistarei Darkei Hashem. Well, we understand why Hashem didn't give you the opportunity to perform tefillin. You have any stories in the Midbar? There were a few aniyim, and they wanted to know why they can't give tzedakah, lama nigara. I mean, not everyone is zeicha to mekayim every single mitzvah. It's a strange question. Why should we lose out? Because you're tamei. And the halach is, if you're tamei, you can't bring the Karm Pesach. What's the question, lama nigara? The Heilige Chassam Sofer wants to know, what is the juxtaposition of Parsha Shmini and the beginning of Parshas Acharei Mos? Parsha Shmini talks about birds. Yeah. So also in Parshas Acharei Mos it talks about tamei foods, that you can't eat tamei foods. What's the connection between eating tamei foods, and the death of Nadav Avihu. That's what Chassam Sofer wants to know. I'm going to read to you one thing. He says, at the end of Pesach Sheini, V'zois hachaya, what's the smichos of macholes asuros to the misa of Nadav Avihu? So Chassam Sofer says a very interesting thing. Why can you eat tray food? They have tumah, they have klipos, they have bad stuff in them. But ba'achros hayamim, when Hashem will be maver and remove the ruach hatumah from the world, taka, you'll be allowed to eat it. Chassam Sofer says, the chazir is asad lahachzer liyisrael. Eventually, you're going to be able to go to McDonald's. Not yet, but eventually the tamei foods will become mutter. Nadav Avihu, they were trying to bring the tikkun ha'achrayin. There's a concept, the Nadav Avihu b'hakrivam l'fnei Hashem, they were trying to get so close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, they were trying to usher in the end of days. It was by Yom HaShmini. Yom HaShmini is like L'malam and They were trying to bring in the tikkun ha'achrayin. And they died misas nashika. Had they achieved what they wanted to achieve, there never would have been an Isra of Machalos Asuros. So says Chassam Sofer, the Isra of Machalos Asuros was hinged and dependent upon what's going to happen with Nadav Avihu. If Nadav Avihu are going to be successful, we don't need to give the parsha of Machalos Asuros. Oh, they're not successful? Okay, that's the juxtaposition of Machalos Asuros to the death of Nadav Avihu. But the truth is that Nadav Avihu were successful to some extent. How's that? In the beginning of Parshas Pinchas, the pasuk says, Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron HaKohen. The Zohar HaKadosh says that when the neshamos of Nadav Avihu left their body, where did they go? Where was it nisaber? Where was it moved to? Who now had the neshama of Nadav Avihu? Pinchas. Pinchas became Nadav and Avihu together. There are many rayas to that. Pinchas, whenever Pinchas talks in Tanakh, he always says the word na. Every time. Nadav Avihu. He always uses the word na. The Zohar says b'feirash, the neshamas of Nadav and Avihu were nisaber into Pinchas. Why Pinchas? Nadav Avihu were mechavein to bring the tikkun achrain. It was a bit premature, but eventually they will bring it in the guise of Eliyahu Navi.
So it was combined with the neshama of Pinchas?
The term is nisaber. Joined together. In fact, the question that many ask is, when Aaron was nimshach, when Aaron was anointed, it was for him and all children who would be born from him later, but Pinchas not. Pinchas was already born, so Pinchas wasn't a kohen. So when did he become a kohen? When he killed Zimri and Cosby. So I'll tell you more precisely. Nadav Avihu's neshama did not join Pinchas yet. The Zohar says it was floating. And when Pinchas killed Zimri, Eliyahu's neshama, Pinchas's neshama got like a jolt. And at that moment, Nadav Avihu's neshama went into them. And that's why, when did Pinchas become a kohen? When he killed Zimri. Why? He didn't become a kohen. He just got the kahuna of Nadav and Avihu. The Chidah says, Pinchas ben Elazar! Pinchas, who used to be ben Elazar, you know who he is now? He's now ben Aaron HaKohen. That's the Chidah brings down based on the Zohar. It's an amazing thing. So it comes out then, Mishal and Al-Tzafin says, wait a second. On the day that I became Tameh, who did I become Tameh to? I became Tameh to Nadav and Avihu, but what happened to them? They became Eliyahu. They were in the process of creating the Tikkun HaAchrain. There's no Tumah on the Tikkun HaAchrain. There's no Tumah on such a thing. Hashem is going to be Maver Tumah Min Haaretz. There's no Tumah on such a thing. Like by Rebbe's Levaya, they said, Batla Kahuna Hayayim. There's no Kahuna today. Because Rebbe was on such a high madrega, he didn't create Tumah. Mamela, Mishal El Tzafan is saying, Lama Nigara. Why should we not be able to bring the Karban Pesach? We shouldn't be Tameh. We shouldn't be Tameh. That's the pshat, he says. Eliyahu Hanavi, the Gemara wants to know in Sanhedrin, where did Eliyahu Hanavi eat during the years of drought? He ate from Achav's kitchen. Achav is a mumar. How could he eat the meat of Achav? The answer is Eliyahu is already on the madrega of the Tikkun HaAchroin. He's He's not bogged down by the tumah of ma'acholos. Don't try that at home. Okay. Memela, the Misa of Nadav Avihu, Mishal and Al-Tzafan are asking, it was such an occasion that it should not create tumah. Think about when does Eliyahu Hanavi show up? He shows up the night of the Seder, when Hashem was Mevatel, called Tumah Min Haaretz. He shows up on Beyoim Hashmini, a Bris Milah, which is also Me'en HaTikon HaAchron. That was the taina of Mishal and Al-Tzafan. The Gra, yeah.
The lesson of Lom Negara should be then, why can't we have it now?
Right, that was their taina. So listen to what Hashem said. You can't do it now, because now there's a loy plug that anyone who contacts a dead body is not allowed to bring the Karm Pesach. But what we're going to do is that there's a concept of Ushan. Okay, this is a very deep concept. Olam Shana Nefesh. What exists in place, in Makayim, exists in time, exists in a person. That means whatever there is in a place, there is a corresponding time for it and a corresponding person for it. I'll give you an example. The place is the Kodesh HaKadoshim. The corresponding time is Yom Kippur. The corresponding person is the Kohen Gadol. Olam Shana Nefesh. So there is a concept that normally a place cannot be moved, and time cannot be moved, and a person can't be moved. This is the one example in history where all three were moved. Listen carefully. The Gemara says, in the beginning of Achrei Moshe, it talks about the Avodah of Yom Kippur. Yeah? And it says, B'zois Yavei Aaron El HaKodesh. And it doesn't say when! It doesn't say Yom Kippur, it doesn't say a word, until the end of the Parsha. So the Gemara, quoting the Chayyadam, in the back of the Chayyadam, says a tremendous chiddush. That what a regular Kohen Gadol needed Yom Kippur for, Aaron HaKohen could have done any day of the year. That's pshat. Bezois Yavai Aaron El HaKodesh. Achrei Moshe is for Aaron any time. For Taka, regular Kohen Gadol, at the end of the Parsha it says Chukas Olam by Yom Kippur. Nadav Avihu on the Madrig of Aaron HaKohen were able to move the day to a different time. They could make it Yom Kippur any time. So listen to what's going on over here. What's going on over here is Hashem is taking Nadav Avihu, the person, and moving the person to Eliyahu. Well, if we can move the person, then we can move the time, and we can move Pesach Rishon a month later. In other words, it's the same move. The soul transmigration of Nadav Avihu to Eliyahu is the same corresponding mystical move as the date change from Pesach Rishon to Sheini, but we know that everything has to come from the Torah, and the blueprint is in the Torah. Therefore, this is the makom where Hashem teaches us, Ein mukdam u'ma'uchar b'Torah. Even though this is where it should be the beginning of the Seder, the Parsha should begin, the Sefer Bamidbar should begin, Pesach Sheini. No! It needs to be moved, because the whole concept of Pesach Sheini is moving a date on the calendar to a different time. It's the only time we do such a thing. We never have sukkahs like moved, the Kedusha of Sukkah moved to a different date. The transmigration of the soul of Nadav and Avihu to Eliyahu is symbolically illustrated by the movement of the Kedusha of Pesach Rishon and Pesach Sheini, is symbolically illustrated by the movement in the Torah of where it should be located to later on, B'Halei Slah.
So time is relative to place and person.
Yeah, that's a very big concept in the Sefer Chasidus. Ushan. Olam Shana Nefesh. It comes from the Sefer HaYetzirah. Okay, that's the second segment. And if you give me 5 more minutes, don't go. You have to hear this, okay? Give me 5 more minutes. You could go, but don't go.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.